Can I remind you, please switch your mobile phones to silent. There are members of the press attending this meeting virtually. So can I ask those attending virtually to switch off your microphone, avoid any disruption during the meeting. The meeting is being recorded and will be available in due course on the council's YouTube channel. A reminder for councillors, to ensure that those attending virtually can hear everything, can you please make sure you project your voice and speak clearly. Please remember it's a formal meeting, therefore do not refer to councillors or officers by their first names. No fire alarm planned, so as soon as you hear it. Please be aware that the contents displayed on your iPad or laptop may be seen by others or members of the public attending the meeting. Therefore, please close down screens which are displaying confidential information during the public part of meetings. Move on. Apologies for absence.
Apologies from Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting. Anybody want to ask anything about the minutes? Councillor David now.
Yeah, thank you. At the last meeting, we resolved to get the waste recycling going, and there's been a bunch of emails about it, but I think that's kind of stalled. So I'd just like to reiterate, we obviously do need to get that group actually going.
Yeah, I think that's been choose
a date. I think there's trying to get everybody in one day is proved difficult, but obviously we just need to choose a date and start.
I think that's big.
Yeah.
When the team might get back. I was on leave last week, so I'm not sure of the details on it.
Actually, there's something else on there as well. You reminded me. Page 7. Chair made a request ahead of environmental enhancement to circulate an update positioning related to the uptake of netting used to top recycling boxes. These are the nettings that we got a large amount of that were very useful to stop, in particular during winter times when things blow away. I don't think, has anybody had an update? Because I haven't. Who is the head of environmental engineering?
Mark's here. If you want Mark to get
I didn't know there's somebody else under you, Mark. Sorry. Environmental enhancement. I didn't realise that was specifically your part.
Yeah, I'm head of environmental enhancement.
We haven't had an update, Mark, on that.
I can bring one.
But I just said we were going to open, circulate one. We haven't had one. Is what I'm saying. You know what I'm talking about? The
Yeah.
Councillor Wooders.
Yeah, thank you. Another one that I raised at the last meeting about having some sort of update on the stalled sites, but in particular at Ilfracombe, in light of the fact that we're going to Ilfracombe next month. It wasn't on the minutes.
You did. This was about the vacant properties, wasn't
it? That's correct. Yeah, I mean the sites at Ilfracombe that have, through one reason or another, stopped any development for quite some time.
Nina, do you want to say something?
Thank you, Chair. With that, we've got an appointment with two members, with Councillor Bell and Councillor Peter Lever on Friday, with Sarah Jane also, just to talk through that pipeline and make sure that we're circulating exactly what the clarification is, whether it's empty homes, whether it is stall sites, and it's those that begin with planning permission and now bringing them forward. So I just want to get clarification as to exactly which ones those are, and then that list can be circulated.
Thank you. I'm happy with that. It's just I didn't want it to get lost in the ethers.
No, yeah, we can been arranged. Thank you.
I'm just looking at you. Councillor Wood. You're doing the housing strategy. I can't see it in the minutes, which is a big thing.
So I just want to say that each and every Ilfracombe Regeneration Board has an update on all these sites as well. So I think we want to make sure that I understand why Councillor Lever and Councillor Bell should be involved. But I think some sort of link with the Ilfracombe members ought to be included in that process, Chair.
Just for clarification, I think we were looking wider than just Ilfracombe at stalled sites. Yeah.
Any other comments on the minutes? somebody approve those in accurate record? Councillor Lever,
Councillor Lever consent.
Councillor Lever. All those in favour of those minutes being accurate, thank you. Item 3, there are no items being brought forward in my chair. Item 4, declaration of interest.
Thank you, Chair. I have an interest here from Councillor Peter Lever under item 9, Rural Prosperity Fund Project 2025-2026. The non-registrable interest as his company is involved in the relocation of the Ilfracombe Museum, which is one of the projects being considered under the fund programme.
Councillor Lever.
Could I ask for clarification from the monitoring officer about as the spouse of other councillor Lever, do I also need to put in a declaration?
Yeah, my view is not that that's only for disclosable pecuniary interest that you need to do.
Always best to check, I feel.
Councillor Bell.
Just declare an interest in item 10 as a county councillor.
Any other declaration of interest? Okay,
Sorry, Claire, one other thing. I'm thinking potentially item 10 as a county councillor, if we are going to come to it, if there is any decision made by this committee, then I probably ought to remove myself as a county councillor. As supposedly, I guess, councillor
If it goes to a decision any kind, then.
Then it's
Item 5, there is no part B, so we're going straight to part A. Item 6, air quality strategy. Darren Hale.
Okay, right, thank you. Thank you, Chair members. Yeah, bear with me. I've had felt a man flu all weekend, so I'm only firing on 7 of the 9 cylinders, whatever it is I have. You may remember last year that the Chief Executive took an urgent decision for the removal of the air quality management area in Broughton. As we've been in, but levels below the exceedance levels for more than 5 years when we included the COVID. So that decision was made. As part of that, DEFRA required that the council has to produce an air quality strategy where it doesn't have an air quality management area. We've had an internal working group that have been looking in terms of the key areas of that. We've come up with the draft document that was attached. It's come up primarily with 6 themes at this stage. So we're seeking members' approval to go out at this stage for consultation, members of the public. We recognise that it's one of those tricky things for consultation, is whether we can get public engagement. We really want public engagement in this. So we've got a meeting, I've got a meeting on the 9th with Broughton Parish Council. Attending, I think it's the 9th, I'll check the date. Yeah, 12th, but yeah, it's the week commences tonight. So an early engagement with those. I'm also attending the Clean Air Day event. So I'm doing some public stuff as well as the online communications. We're doing that. So we're thinking to go out consultation for a period of 6 weeks to see if the members of the public agree with the 6 themes that we've chosen in terms of where we attack air quality and our general approach to it. So generally what we're seeking, members have hopefully read the strategy as it stands. There have been a few minor amendments since this was submitted to committee. There's been a couple of typos that I've found, or Bev Triggs kindly found for me in the document, and a few headings are missing out, but they've been corrected before it goes out to draft anyway. Members, got any questions on that?
Yeah, thank you. Any comments, questions? Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3, I'm afraid, if that's okay. Just in a random, the first one being page 66. You're endorsing, we're endorsing Planet Bike and Bike Shed UK. Fantastic, obviously, in the work they do with small repairs and things. Obviously, they are both Barnstaple-based businesses, very good businesses, but we do have bike businesses outside of Barnstaple, including South Fork in Braunton. Be nice to know if we could endorse and make sure that we're working with them, because it would be fantastic for people who do not have to cycle in their dilapidated old bikes into Barnstaple in order to get them fixed up. But that's just about. I'm sure that will come up in the consultation as something that we can do. I should imagine you will get quite a lot of feedback from Braunton, because of course we are going to be looking at air quality, and we know that one of the major issues has been the air quality through Cane Street, which to declare, of course, my kids go to Cane Street School, and it remains, although it dropped out of the air quality management, it's still presumably the most polluted part of North Devon, just happens to be North Devon. So we do have a serious concern. I know that within the consultation, people are going to be asking very very strong questions about why the air quality management has been, why the monitoring is not as strong as it was a couple of years ago. We know that having come through COVID and the data is declining, but it's still outside the one entrance to Kane School. It's still very, very high, and certainly at this time of year where the kids have just gone back today, it will be quite a strong thing. And we're talking about putting some green walls up outside Kane School there, just to really mitigate some of that problem. And looking, of course, with White Cross, the number of trucks may be relatively low, but the number of trucks going through the centre of the village is going to slow down all of the other polluting traffic that's also going through the village at the same time. It is going to, while the number of big trucks may be lesser, it's still going to create more traffic going through that bottleneck in the village. And as has been pointed out, part of the White Cross planning application that's been put through is, I think, condition 14, there will be air quality management. We do want to ensure that that really isn't just on the boroughs and on the over where the work is happening, actually that throughput through the village. And I think you'll find that there will be a very good response to the consultation, kind of in that grounds. I mean, I'm happy to support the consultation, obviously, and I think, you know, we must expect to get a very good feedback from Braunton as a rule. The one other side was on page 24, where we're talking about EV charging points. Yes, it's fantastic that the district council is putting in more and more EV charging points, and of course with the resources that the district council has got, it's been quite effective, I think. I mean, I'm told good things. When I can afford an electric vehicle, I'll have one myself. But in the meantime, I know the parish councils, again, it would be nice to make sure that, I think we're doing some work with the hospital, and my mind, I forget exactly what that is, working with some of those parish councils. Braunton, again, other parish councils are working to get those EV sites, but I think it would be a much quicker programme if North Devon Council would lend some expertise and resource to the parishes to make sure that we can kind of cooperate slightly and get those things moved forwards.
Okay, well, I'll address some of that. The first one is, firstly, this strategy doesn't take away our monitoring. Our monitoring is standing on exactly the same as it always says. The only thing is we don't have an action plan specifically for Braunton. It doesn't mean to say that we won't target that as a problem, because we recognise in terms of air quality, that probably is our worst area. You know, in terms of, say, that nitrogen dioxide and particulates, which is the two things we're talking about probably there. They are well below the limits, but I do understand, you know, having worked in busy London boroughs, you know, Braunton, even though you're saying how bad it is, it's well below those levels. But I can understand why you want to do more, and we do want to do more. That's the whole dresser. Going on to the issues of the wider stuff, when we've got a strategy that's adopted, which we expected to come back in September for members for adoption, assuming everything goes well with the consultation, is other bodies have to have regard to air quality strategy. So the county council will have to have regard to that, and it will have more weight when we talk about planning elements of it and that sort of element. So as an adopted document, it will carry a lot more weight than just, you know, a wish list, if you like. It'll be our strategy, and they must have regard to it. So we can always challenge somebody when they come back and say you haven't had regard to it. I think those two things link together. And yes, we're not. This strategy isn't taking our foot off the brake with air quality. You know, when you drive around North Devon compared to a lot of places, you know, it's good out there, but we're not taking our foot off. We recognise it's near, and it does link in very well with our climate desires in terms of that, and the work that I do with Donna and the rest of the teams in terms of the EV charging and that, and we'll keep that out because they are linked. Carbon reduction and NO2 and the other pollutants are all linked. They all come. 90% comes from vehicles, so that's all we've got to say.
The data that's gathered, will that, because it can be a little bit difficult to get hold of, will that be more readily available for members of the public?
It shouldn't be difficult to get hold of. The annual status report is published on our internet and the internet. The current version for this year, it looks at last year's data, as you'd imagine. Mm-hmm. So this year's one is, I've just received the draft. Just going through it all. There's been a few tweaks and comments that I've had from other members that we've changed a few elements. But that's ready to go out, and that will be as soon as that's agreed. We have to consult with Director of Public Health on that document. For the last 2 years, they haven't responded at all. Hopefully this year I've got a fast line now to somebody that's quite willing to take on that. So hopefully we'll get a response back from them, and then we'll publish that on the website. But it's all on the website under air quality. If you type it in, all those reports should be up. They're they do get very technical very quickly, and it's very hard to talk about air quality monitoring and not getting technical, and people lose it. When I'm going to do the clean air day, I'm going to take out some maps, but it's a bit hard when you take out a map that doesn't really show an awful lot.
No, that's
You know,
why.
if you've got Westminster Bridge and you can show all this great big massive pollution, it looks impressive, and you can say, oh, here's it. But when you're looking at very small minor variations, although they're important, it's visually not very attractive and not very engaging. So that's why I'm attending to hopefully explain those sort of.
No, I get that. Thank you. When again, I suppose it comes back to the school. That I've got one of my seven and a half yesterday. One of my 7.5-year-olds is asthmatic, and therefore I do have a big concern about the level. Well, I think the monitoring that I would love to be able to see, and maybe you can say whether this will be possible. I think again this will come up in the consultation, because looking at Whitecross, people are going to want that information quite quickly. They would love to have that information quite quickly. Live monitoring, like when South West Water happened to release a lot of poo into the sea. We would love to know the good days and the bad days, because of course BBC Weather will tell us whether there's likely to be high or low pollution. But when it comes to North Devon, they're going to say it's low pollution in North Devon, but that doesn't affect the children walking to and from school. It'd be great if we could see live information, but I don't know what the reality of that.
I will touch on live monitoring, because it's so an automatic monitoring station for particulates or NO2 would be in the region of 50 to 100,000. And we're unlikely to get funding for that because it is so far below those levels. Central funding we do get for those, but you know, if you can get it in a school, which a lot of where I previously worked, a lot of our monitoring stations were in schools, because firstly it was county or unitary. I worked in it with our land, and doing notifications are quite easy. And it's also quite interesting for the children to teach them about air quality and those sort of things. So they're quite good things to do, but the stations themselves can be very expensive, and they have to be maintained over that period, so it can be very expensive. So
sorry to monopolise the Bronson all the time, but it's the best bit. One last bit.
I'm just going to bring in other people and then come back to you after. Councillor Mascot.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to have the same concerns as Councillor Bell about Cane Street and the air quality in Cane Street, and particularly around the school. But I would be happy to support the consultation. And also, I believe as part of the section 106 and some of the more recent development, there are plans for some mover traffic lights, which will monitor the flow of traffic and allow, and I'm hoping that will improve the flow of traffic and stop that sort of prolonged stationary traffic during the summer. So which might help a little bit with the good.
It's something I've not looked into actually, and I know that in previous authority I've worked in, we have used Section 1 money to get that live monitoring. But it's when you had a case, but it might be worthwhile speaking to planning to find out if there is any resource within that Section 106 money to get that live monitoring, particularly at that location. If that is our worst, and I would have to look at the actual data, but I think it is one of those the higher areas in terms of that. So if we can get some monitoring, especially if we know that something's likely to be impacting on it by increasing it, because that's the one risk that we have with air quality strategies. If we're not supposed to have an air quality strategy, if we think we're going to get back into an air quality management area, because we're that low, it's very unlikely unless something really significant happens. A motorway that comes through there or something like that in terms of that. So in terms of level, but it might be something, a source of funding that will help us fund live monitoring. That's something I'll look into.
Councillor Ricky Knight, as the recently promoted lead member for environment.
Yeah, somehow greatness thrust upon them, Chair. Thank you. Darren, thank you very much for this report. It's really robust and thorough, professional, representative, and I applaud it, you and your team as such. 3.1 and 2.1, I would call no-brainers from our point of view. We've had a few exchanges appropriately, as given my role, yes. Insofar as I had a few problems which you put me straight on, quite frankly, because it's counterintuitive, as Councillor Bell has pointed out. It's counterintuitive to think that we're withdrawing it from Daunton, which is just a black spot for. But I take your points. If you're below the levels, then you need a plan, and that's exactly what we've now got. I applaud the 6 themes. Concerned about ammonia from agricultural and concerned about nitrous oxide, obviously, from vehicles, but that's true for every community. The report alludes favorably to all we've been doing over the years, as again you've mentioned, all our net zero target ambitions in terms of transport and our LC whip Yeah, and charging EV stations, fuel efficiency, etc. I got a bit confused with the appendices. It's extremely complex to really work out some of those graphs. And again, I'll leave that to professionals. Take your word for it. But I would point out page 50 in particular, or pages 47, 48, and 49, and 50 particularly on page 50 in terms of repeating the mantra, particularly point 4, where it says get out your cars and get onto sustainable transport. And I'm afraid the painful fact is this: if you haven't got an electric car, Councillor Bell, get one. It might hurt financially, but I mean, it's easier said than done. But it's not horrible when you.
Or
Nearly there, sorry.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this afternoon I should be doing a vlog. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going trying to emulate Councillor Bell's housing vlog. I know that Sophie and yourself are concerned that I might go rogue, so I've been thinking about what I might do, and I've decided on. I've had a word with Graham Nash from Prosecutors Nash and Young about their Hollies tune, and I think I'll be starting with that one. The air that I breathe. Oh, I could go for a golden day in Bournemouth town. You know. Anyway, I look forward to that, and I won't let you down.
Okay, thank you.
So, Chair, since Pink Floyd have been topical in Bronson recently, I believe the phrase you're looking for is "We don't need no air pollution. We don't need no traffic toll."
Oh, I got that one. Okay, I'll add that to the repertoire. Thank you.
Don't encourage him, Graham.
It was a question of curiosity. The air quality in Braunton was considered bad, and yet now it's considered to be very low. Has the rules changed, or is it simply the introduction of Euro 6 cars?
It's a mixture of both. One is when I initially looked at the data when I first came here, some 2 years ago now almost. I'm not sure we should ever have declared in the first place. Okay. Because the first one was a blip just above. It was a blip. We then had COVID, which messed everything up in terms of the figures. The reason why we had to go for 5 years. Normally it's 3 years of good air quality, and then you go for a strategy you declare. Because of COVID, it's 5 years, a longer period. But yes, so I think it is primarily the number of EVs that are around, the better of polluting, because it's not about particulates, it's purely about NO2. That's what it was declared on.
Euro 6 diesel, of course.
Yeah, so but that's particulate, so that's really not really affecting it. So it is, more people now work from home, so that although when you stand in Braunton, of course, in the busy summer days now, it doesn't feel like it, but there is actually a reduction in traffic and the times of vehicles in terms of the general use, and it is an annual average. The hourly average, I'm trying not to get too dated, the hourly average takes a lot to exceed it, and that's Westminster Bridge sort of level, that to exceed that level. But the annual average report it is actually relatively low, and there is health data behind it, and you may not feel to say those people that are suffer from asthma, any pollution is going to be bad. But in terms of those levels, that the level is relatively low, as you say. It's sort of it just figure is just what it is.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor Lever?
Yeah, I mean, just nothing to do with the report, which is fantastic, and I'm sure a lot of stuff will come up from consultation. But I must admit, this is the sort of thing I would have sort of expected to come to policy development on its way through. Is there a plan for this to come to policy development committee at all for a bit more detailed sort of scrutiny than we can give it here?
It's not really comes to policy, I think. Well, it's not on their work programme at the moment. But if Strategy and Resources want policy development to look at it in advance of adoption, then in approval this for consultation, you could ask for it to go to policy development.
I think once the consultation results are in, it's just that there's the work programme of the committee is such that there's more time to go into the sort of detail that I think people are going into today on something like this.
The question then, I guess, is, it would need to come back here for adoption once it's been policy development.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
I think at the next policy, someone tell me when the next policy is no longer on it. It's usually the Thursday after.
Next week.
Is it next week?
Yes.
Thursday. I think they should be discussing there, Ken, the recommendations from right. So after that, hopefully we've had, because there has been cases this year where policy has been cancelled due to lack of business, which is a bit frustrating when things like this should really be going there. But hopefully after the next policy, things like this will by our own policy be going there first. I think that's what's going to happen. Hopefully, depending on what policy.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Bell, and then Councillor Councillor Ritty now.
Thank you. Just very quickly, when can we get the 2024 figures?
So as I said, that the drafts, I could share the draft with you now, but not for general circulation, but I could search that without, because it's not been, I've not finally consulted with the DP, the Director of Public Health, but I can certainly show you the draft. When I get back to my desk, I can share that with you. Any other members want to see the draft version, so that, but it's until it's actually tidied up, if you like, in terms of that, because it's written by a consultant in terms of this. So it's a bit of an analogy with that. We engage Bureau Veritas to write that, because they run all the service stations and the automatic nose station on behalf of DEFRA. They also run the help desk for DEFRA, and they also approve our strategy when we submit it. So they write it and then they approve it, which is a little bit of a strange DEFRA thing in terms of that. So yeah, but I can share that with you.
Fantastic. And just on the likes that Councillor Maskell mentioned, thank you very much for that. Yes, the work will go ahead. It's currently queued. The highways feel that it will have a benefit, but not a significant benefit. So it's quite low down on their work programme. But I'm pushing forwards on the grounds that a low benefit is not no benefit. So I feel that it does need to be done. Yes, we're moving towards electric cars, but we do also have a heavily polluted street that's well used, and shopkeepers, elderly people, school children. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question down about is it mobility? Are they still in effect?
No, they're not. So yeah, that came back from that. So that they're not at this stage. This is probably one of the problems with this. Right? There are lots of good little schemes out there, but it's very hard to list them all in terms of a strategy. But as you say, when the consultation comes back, perhaps we'll have an appendices. It might be worthwhile thinking that the amount of comments I've gone back so far, even before consultation, of acknowledging all those active bodies that are out there that are involved in this.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Questions? Councillor Bell, last one.
From Ricky Knight. Sorry, Councillor Knight. I believe Torbay have just launched what I'm told is a particularly effective electric cycle scheme, which works in the same way as Zip Mobility, but is more bike based. So it's potentially less likely to attract the antisocial behaviour I think people associated with the scooters. It got a little bit scary. Is that not is there no preference towards going that? I think Plymouth have got it, Torbay have got it, Exeter are thinking about it, and North Devon should be at the cutting edge of these things.
I think it might be the topology which helps a little bit there. Strangely enough, Torbay, you mentioned those. I mean, I've been in conversation with my colleague out there. They are just doing exactly the same thing that we're doing here, but it's being written by the officer and not consulted on at all. They're not. They're just writing it. So no, I believe in public consultation in this, and as you say, there's lots of things that as officers we don't know about a lot of the minor schemes, so it's worth pushing forward that. But yes, I think it's just a topology, but I can speak to my colleague and find out the viability of that for them.
Yes, Trinas?
It might have been referred to in the document somewhere and I missed it, but what's the process behind determining the location of the monitoring stations? Because they're in Ilfracombe, Bolton and Barnstaple, but nowhere else.
There are some out in Remington in terms of that. So yeah, it was done. The original tube locations was done on modelling that was done through a program called ADMS, which is an automatic. Basically, it's a modelling program where we put in the traffic data and the flows into the system, and it comes up where those areas are in terms of that. And they were the levels that came up as the highest likely to be in those levels. That's how they were chosen. Having said that, I do review it annually to find out whether, and it is a little bit difficult because it's not a cheap thing to put all these tubes out. Officers go out and change them. We have to go through monitoring. And I quite often think, actually, this tube has been giving us a really low value for years. Should we move it to location X? But moving the tube then causes people that, well, you've moved the tube away from my location. You're not monitoring here anymore. It's very good to say, well, actually, it's so low, it really isn't worth monitoring. It's not taking us anything. We'd be better off using it here. Or the alternative is to buy another tube and have another 12 months of 12 tubes. So it's something, but I do look annually to find out whether there are any areas where I need to look at putting additional tubes. We've just done that with ammonia in terms of that. So there is no back this out of Broughton Browns as one national monitoring site. but we've now purchased 4 passive tubes to go around different rural locations. So we got a bit of a picture, and we'll look at that and find out whether the good locations are not coming up. So we do look at that constantly in terms of where the tubes are located.
Can I ask Darren, if members in a minute approve the recommendation to go for consultation, you just said something, what the next stage will be? After consultation, then what happens?
The initial plan, until we mentioned about policy resource development, is the case of it would normally come back in September. Oh, that's what I had timetabled for it. Come back in September. But if we've got policy development committee working on something, it might. My concept, there isn't any timescale set by DEFRA in terms of when we must have a strategy. I think Torridge have always been required to have one and never had one. They've never been challenged on it, although literally they're working on one. But we'd need to be showing progress towards it. I think when I do the annual return next year, they'll want to see that we're doing that. So if policy development doing that and it comes back later in the year, depends on how long policy development would take to look at that in terms of their involvement, I guess.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councillor Muskell? Recommendation been proposed, seconded by Councillor Lever. All those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. Thank you very much, Darren, for that. Very informative. Item 7 is transfer of Saltram Beach toilets.
Good morning, Chair. Board members. This is a report looking at our running Saltram Beach toilets that we've been doing since 2002, where we entered into the lease with Christie Estates. The report's also in line with the public convenience review that members agreed to back in 2022, which meant that the district council looked at all of the public conveniences that it owned and that it was running. Hopefully you've already had a chance to read the report. We've been speaking to Christie Estates. The toilets are in need now of a refurbishment because they're very tatty and very, very difficult to clean. I mean, they're cleaned several times a day at this time of year, but they still don't look like they've been cleaned because they need a thorough refurbishment. So what we've worked with Christie Estates on is a one-off payment for them of £250,000, which would enable them to really refurbish those toilets, and then would also, if they agree to us, withdrawing our involvement in the cleaning and the maintenance of those toilets going forward. There's another 27 years to run on the existing lease, and you'll see in the report that based on today's prices, annual sort of cost of 48,000 a year, that would mean that we would be required to spend over £1 million on the future running of the toilets. So the recommendation is that members agree to a one-off payment of £250,000 to Christie Estates to surrender the lease in November this year. Transfers between earmarked reserves as outlined in section 5.5 of the report be approved, and then subject to the approval of 2.1 and 2.2, that S&R committee approves the revenue cost of £250,000 be funded from the strategic contingency reserve subject to a lease surrender document upon such terms and conditions as may be agreed by the senior solicitor and monitoring box.
Thank you, Mark. I've got Councillor Crabbe and then Muskell and Sheila.
Where do you start? I suppose you have to start in 2002. My God's name did we sign? What? Why wasn't it? Why?
I think,
Different signs.
just to come in, leader, obviously 2002 was different times. I think if we were looking at public convenience provision now, we probably would not enter into such a lease. But 2002, that did happen. 50-year lease, obviously we are tied in for that. This gives us an opportunity to escape from that lease. And obviously it is a financial consideration for members, but the significant savings moving forwards from extracting ourselves from that lease far outweigh the financial consideration of Hunts Group. But to answer the question, obviously it was different times in 2002 in terms of the council providing public conveniences. we had a significant number of toilets, more than we have now back in the early 2000s. And obviously over time, we've reduced that provision. And as Member alluded to, a couple of years ago, made the decision to look to pass those toilets over to a number of town and parishes in the wider community.
But my thoughts then drift over to what of that lease, there's 48,000 a year, I think, somewhere in it. Of that 48,000, how much is rent and how much is the cost of maintenance?
None of it's rent. It is solely the cost.
I can close the doors.
The lease doesn't allow us to. So the lease doesn't allow us to shut the doors. Obviously, we're tied into that lease. We've got cleaning costs. We've got commitments to our provision of toilets being open and maintaining them to a good tenantable repair. So the guarantees of that lease mean we have to provide toilets. They have to be in good repair and also continue to run as toilets until 2052.
So this committee is being asked to charge every single resident in North Devon £2.50 to give to Hector Christie. That's utter nonsense. There's got to be some way that we can crash this lease.
At the moment, we are committed for the next 27 years to continue that. So at the moment, the council taxpayers will be committed to paying. At the moment, the cost is 48,000 a year. With inflation over the next 27 years, that will increase even.
48,000. If you continue maintaining it in their current condition, if you just let them rot, do you honestly think Christie Estate is going to sue the council?
A large chunk of that cost will be the cleaning costs. So there's not a material amount of that cost is in maintenance, and the majority of that cost is cleaning costs. So we would still have a provision to make them.
There are others as well. You can come back on.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah. That all aside, I think I'm part of a group called Access for All. We've been trying to make all of our beaches in North Devon accessible to people with disabilities, and I know that there have been conversations with Christie's about, you know, the disabled facilities down there are pretty poor. I think I've spoken to you about the toilet seat missing in the disabled toilet, and you were going to address that. But I think, yes, it does all need an overhaul. And if it's something that we, you know, I don't think this council should be committing to investing money in something that doesn't technically belong to us. So if there's no other way out, then I think, yes, we're going to have to do this and swallow it. And I would welcome the opportunity for, as long as Christie's commits to improving those facilities, then I think, you know, I would go with the recommendation.
Councillor Petrinos.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, I mean, it's partially been answered. I wonder if it costs nearly £1,000 a week to keep a toilet block open. But I think you kind of explained it a bit. It just seems an awful lot of money, but I imagine a lot of it is maintenance.
It's been costs, utilities, obviously water, electric. So it's a combination of those three elements and maintenance in there as well. But yeah, historically it's been costing between 40 and now 48,000 a year.
But we've only got just in the report talks about the small cleaning team we've got to cover the entire district, and only a part of those will be dedicated to Sorting, I imagine. And it just still seems a boggling number. Nevertheless, as it's presented, the numbers, the 40, you know, the buyout makes sense. But it's just 48,000 a year. Gosh.
It's been because it's heavy use of utilities, obviously electric, water usage. As you can imagine, obviously the beach during the summer months, the amount of usage those toilets gets, there's extra cleans in the summer months because of that. So they're not just cleaned once a day. You've got repeat cleans going on as well. As Mark said, once they're cleaned, 5 minutes later, then they're dirty again. So it's significant usage of the resource, but heavy utility as well.
The footfalls are incredibly high.
Councillor Lever and Ken wants to say something. Just
Chair, if I may, it's just on that point. I'm presuming, Mark may be able to confirm, but I'm presuming beach toilets are far more difficult to maintain and more expensive to maintain because of the sand and the other material that's deposited in there.
I was going to, yeah, and also talking to Christie's, there's a team at the beach that, you know, they've got a team that can react much quicker than we can. We've got to send someone out from here, or they could be down in South Molton to get up to Sorting. So, you know, on a day where it's extremely busy and the toilet's blocked with sand or something, I think if Christie Estates are managing them, their team can react a lot faster than we can. So it is an expensive facility for us to be engaged with.
Councillor Caroline Lever and then Councillor Bell and Councillor Glasgow.
So if we go back to, 2002, and this lease was entered into, and I have every confidence that it was entered into in good faith, and that the view was that it was a good way to go. But, we have had a decade and a half of, the local authority finance has been sort of hollowed out by central government, and we've also had, and I think this is quite important thinking about the whole of North Devon, we've had a move from central government funding to reliance on council tax increasingly. And I'm thinking about council taxpayers in my ward. Actually, some of them may go to Saunton, but I bet you most of them are not. And certainly we know that we have areas of considerable deprivation in our district, and those people are paying council tax that is supporting these loos. Now, it is unfortunate that we are in a position where, there are businesses there, there's car park there, where there is significant income going into the businesses that are running those, but that we're left picking up the pieces in terms of the loos. All of us would like to see loos there, but I think that the impact across the district, it is out of proportion to the way in which we have to manage our finances. We're not, we're a well-run organisation. We've been able to avoid redundancies, great, but actually the finances of all local councils, as we all know, are more stretched than they've probably ever been. So, I believe this goes back to Rodney Can, who I think was in charge of public conveniences back at the time that this was agreed. But I have every confidence that it was entered into in good faith, as I say. But it's just not sustainable at this point. So I'd like to propose that we, the officer recommendations, I'd like to propose that we improve those.
One of my favourite novels, the opening line is, "The past is a foreign country, they do things differently there." We probably wouldn't do this again the same way. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I also wish I could go back to 2002 because I had hair like Councillor Lever's. I would mention, of course, we don't have access to a TARDIS, but this did keep me awake slightly last night because it is a lot of money, and as Councillor Crabb says, it's £2 per person across the thing now, but it is £10 per person if we don't do anything. And I think we need to do something, and more mindful of this fact that it is a horrible amount of money to spend, but at the same time, this is one of the greatest beaches in the country. People might say the world. It is a fantastic beach, and the work North Devon Council have done the best to maintain and keep those toilets up. But as we say, it's costing money to get to and from. It's costing money to do all this. The Christie's Estate are on site 24/7. They can keep these toilets, they can renovate these toilets, they can make them better for people with additional access, they can make them run more efficiently, they can keep them cleaner, and they can do a better job, which currently these toilets are one of the things that reflects on North Devon when people visit. We'd like our toilets to be better. We'd like people to go away from North Devon having a good toilet and beach experience.
Yeah, seems to be saying the same things here, so people can restrict themselves to a different point. Councillor Maskell.
I just wanted to ask, is there any way we can make this happen sooner so that we don't have the cost of maintaining those toilets over this summer season? If they want the money.
The aim is to, obviously draft heads of terms have been agreed with Christie's Estate subject to this committee's approval. So following.
Did you haggle the job? Did you haggle?
Conversations took place with them, yeah. So we managed to get down to what we feel is an acceptable level. As alluded to, obviously it costs us 50,000 a year at the moment, and that's going to go up with inflation to probably 80,000 by the year 2052. So it will repay itself in 4 to 5 years' time. So actually, the savings to the council taxpayer is actually 20 years worth of that savings. So it's a significant savings for the future council taxpayers. In terms of speed, as soon as members have made the decision, obviously we will push forwards with our legal team to get that finished as soon as we can. It's in our interest to get it over the line as quickly as possible so that we no longer have that financial liability and we no longer have to be moved. So we'll be looking probably a couple of months to get it over the line, but hopefully by the tail end of the summer, we'll have it passed over to Christie so that they'll be picking up that future liability.
Okay, so November wasn't their sort of set deadline, you know, so that they didn't have the expenditure over the summer.
They were in for the autumn, I think, weren't they?
Yeah, we've got November in there because I think both parties were confident that we could get it done by then. And just to add in as well, the costs for the refurb, our team at North Devon looked at that and costed it out independently, and Christie's did, and so that the figure was, you know, it was the same ballpark figure for both parties.
Councillor Lever, Councillor Davies, I think.
I wonder if we could just have a copy of the lease to look at, that was all.
Yeah, I mean, all it was on the suggestion that we just close the doors and let them rot. I mean, that is not what people expect a local authority. I mean, it may be the way that it may be the way that the private sector works, but I mean, people expect their local council to act properly and in good faith. And if we entered into a lease in good faith and it doesn't suit us anymore, then we need to act within the law and properly in dealing with that. I mean, and I think the officers have acted properly in negotiating a way out of that lease that is within the law and maintains those toilets as open. I mean, the biosphere was set up, I think, in 2002, and Braunton is in the heart of that, and I can quite see why putting more facilities into Braunton, Saunton Beach, you know, was seen as a really good thing at the time. Thanks.
Sorry, no.
David, and then Councillor Powers.
Sorry, Chair, I was just going to second the.
Councillor Powers.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap my brains flat to 2002.
It was in the church every week, wasn't it? By the owner of the car park, wasn't it?
Well, the problem was that the time, the old toilets that were back against the cliff face were an absolute shambles. And in the end, Christie's decided to close them. And what happened was that there was negotiation with the Christie's who were going to build the building in exchange for having this lease that underpinned and sort of paid for the capital work. So I suppose at the time we had absolute uproar from the public about the lack of toilets at Saunton, and I think you've got to put that into the picture to understand why the decision was made. And at that stage, I don't think we had anything like those sort of cleaning costs, and therefore the lease seemed to make sense because it was nothing like that sort of figure at the time that was quoted, you know, an absolute fraction of that. So, you know, times have changed, inflation's happened, and of course, 23 years on, things need refurbishing. So do we carry on and refurbish them, which is the only other option, and carry on with the lease, which would mean we'll pay twice? Yeah. So, you know, I'm just saying to it, just, you know, we don't always get everything completely right. And I can't remember who the lead member was, to be honest. But
Well, I was going to hear, I mean, that they are such an important part of anybody that goes to the beach. It's absolutely essential. And I'm extolling the virtues of a couple of days around my own village, Willerkid, where the privately owned beach, privately owned car parks, which is exactly the same as at Saunton, have 2 toilet blocks that they own and operate, and they're a credit, absolute credit. People can come away saying, terrific, well done. And if this what's going to come out of this, so be it. Let's just get on with it.
Sorry, one last point. Is there any way of negotiating as part of this deal that they put in a changing places facility? A changing places facility for disabled people?
I think the result, we probably would lose the deal we've got. It probably would mean that costs would go up as well in terms of the cost that we would have to pay. So there'd be pros and cons. That again, I think it's something that we recommend. Discussions can obviously continue with Christie's to say, obviously, we would like to see that come forwards. But again, I think it would change the context of the existing deal we've got in place. But we can certainly take that away and continue that conversation with Christie as part of their refurbishment programme as to what their plans are.
Councillor Crabb, one last point, then we'll go through.
No, really, I just said, I take the point, it's just so irritating. I mean, why is the fact that people in Saunton, who are 99.7% tourists, up in arms, went a knee-jerk reaction, yet it's perfectly all right to shut the toilets in Ilkeston, which is 99% local. But there we are, that's the point. I'm irritated, but I will sit here quietly.
We haven't done.
From now.
Okay, so we'll move the recommendation. Councillor Masco's seconded by David Knight.
I move that David Knight. Seconded.
Right, okay.
That's what you said earlier.
Right, yeah, so that's been kind of all this one. Okay, thank you. All those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. Anybody against? Abstentions? Abstention. Okay, thank you very much. Head of Environmental Enhancements. Item 8, approval of the release of S106 public open space funds for Tracy. Is this you again?
I'll do this one as well. Okay, thank you. This is a very straightforward section 106 public open space allocation of funds report. It's just seeking member approval to allocate just under £9,000 to Newton Tracy Cricket Club for some refurbishment works to their clubhouse, to these some bifold doors into the clubhouse. So the recommendation is that S&R allocates £8,906.99 to Newton Tracy Cricket Club to complete their refurbishment at the entrance of the pavilion. Note that £6,096 of the funding be allocated to the project that was previously allocated to another project to forward Lovercott and Newton Tracy Parish Council towards the region of a wooden gazebo at Lovercott playing fields. That was agreed in November 2021, but the Parish Council chose not to progress that scheme, and Newton Tracy Cricket Club are the other eligible recipient of the funds in the Section 106 agreement. That's application number 66937 Higher Westerway. So subject to the approval of 2.2 and consideration of 2.2, the recommendation is that S&R committee recommends to council that they vary the capital programme by £2,810.99 and the funds be released subject to a funding agreement upon such terms and conditions as may be agreed by the senior solicitor and monitoring officer.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Caroline Lever and Councillor Corbyn.
Yeah, thank you for this. I would think it would be good for this money to be used for this purpose. It's all tied up with Section 106 agreements being signed. I'd like to move the recommendation.
Just any comments as well.
I was just going to say, as my young uncle was one of the most long-standing umpires at Newton Tracy, and he actually pioneered a new technique of partially sighted umpire. Always the best, yeah. So I'd be happy to second the recommendation.
Now, did you want to? No. No. Okay, recommendation reports. Seconded. All those in favour? Any against? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Item 9, Rural England Prosperity Public Programmes. Okay.
Apologies, I had a bit of a brain flare earlier. So that my advice to Councillor Karen Lever wasn't quite right. So if there is considered to be an effect on the financial well-being of your husband's business, then it is worth declaring and
Yeah, that's getting more
over. Yeah.
I'll come back.
Take your consort with you.
Yeah.
We'll try and remember to.
That's the crucial thing.
Yeah.
I'm not chairman either.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, members. So this is quite a brief report, members, just to advise you all that government confirmed in March 25 that there would be a further year of the Rural England Prosperity Fund. As you'll see in the report, that allocation this time, though, rather than be directly awarded to ourselves, goes to the Combined County Authority. The allocation is capital, and the allocation for ourselves is £327,309. In the report, I've set out to members how the money may be spent. There is a specific criteria around REP, and you'll be aware of that from the previous 3 years of funding that that was put to you. When the announcement was first, the Combined County Authority were considering a central grant, whereas the district councils indicated that actually we would prefer to receive the monies and spend as we saw fit, and that is what we said to both the County Council and the Combined Authority. We have submitted some draft projects to the Combined Authority as was set out in the appendix. What we would ask, however, as set out in the recommendations, that delegated authority be given to myself, along with the leader and the lead member for Regeneration Economic Development Planning, to confirm what those final projects look like, and also that members recommend to full council variation of the capital programme by the grant amount of £327,309 to be released.
No, Jane, any questions, comments?
Chair, could I move it? And I think it's important. I mean, we did have this conversation before. I think to make sure we've got to make sure we do the right thing in terms of one of those two options. And it's just want to really applaud the thought of ring fencing this for Ilfracombe. I think it's another example of us, putting our money where our mouths have been over the last few months. And I think, I haven't made up my mind which scheme it is, but I should be listening to people that represent Ilfracombe, in any influence I'd have over the decision, Chair. That's all.
Yeah, concur with that. Any other comments? Yes, John.
Thank you. Just to add, the reason it's coming here without a definitive outcome in terms of which project is to make sure we get the programme varied. Now there is a deadline to spend by the 31st of March next year. So the reason it's coming here for then approval at full council in July, subject to your approval this morning, is so that the capital programme can be varied with those delegated powers given to Head of Place, Property and Regen with the lead members, so that we can progress as soon as possible as a project outcome is defined, so we can get that spend out the door before the 31st of March.
Yeah, thank you. Somebody move the recommendation. Councillor Petrinos, seconded by Councillor Proud. All of you, the other way around, sorry. All in favour? Thank you. What did we decide about county councillors for the next?
Chair, my advice would be that it's meant to be a sort of general update, so county councillors can remain in the room. But if the committee starts to change its mind and make a decision at that point, it would be worth.
I remind everybody, I should have done this perhaps at the start, but I think Ken wants to have an informal briefing about the Combined Authorities growth plan. I think all councillors are being advised to, whether it was anybody else. Yeah, I'm just saying about, I did remind people at the start, Ken, about you want people to stay behind after doing it.
Yeah. Councillors leave or just coming by now.
We'll wait till the. It is a verbal report, isn't it? Okay, they're in the room now. We can see it. So, Jane, you want to?
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Chair.
So yeah, I've been asked to give a verbal update on the St George's Road position following the report that came to Strategy Resources on the 12th of May. So as per the minute, both myself and the county members, together with the Chief Executive, approached Devon County Council. Firstly, to advise that North Devon Council would not be disposing of our land on the basis of the arrangement and asking them to reconsider their approach for the pieces of land. So we received a reply from the County Council advising that they would suspend the current process so that we can jointly consider how we can maximise the potential opportunities for affordable housing. On that basis, I now have a meeting with County Council estate colleagues this Thursday, the 5th of June.
Any comments, questions on Councillor Peter Lever?
Yeah, I'll just, I mean, that's really good news, I think. Just in terms of provision of affordable housing in Northern Devon and working with the county so that they can, you know, it's good to see that the county are looking at their estate and their disposals and how they can benefit the community and contribute towards supply of affordable housing here. And I just wonder if it's worth asking the leader just to write to the leader of the county and just sort of express those sentiments.
Yeah, I can do that. That's an agreement with.
So Chair, can I just,
Yeah.
Chair, I just wanted to, remember, it's not just about the affordable housing, which is very, very important, but it is about placemaking because it's in the heart of a really important community for Barnstable. And I think, you know, getting that balance right. So I think, I just wanted to make that point.
And Chair, apologies.
It is about
Councillor Price,
community.
I did say a place-based solution. I just didn't read that part of my notes, but that did go to
Yeah,
that
so
one
that's too much half term.
No, I mean, we can prepare a letter that acknowledges that change of approach from the council and thanks them for adopting it in this particular case. And we can express our views about, looking forward to working with them on an acceptable scheme that meets those requirements.
The new leader of county council probably wonder what would happen when he became a leader, because he probably got 20 emails off different people in Devon saying about this one particular piece of land.
I know, see, Julian, but
I'd suggest perhaps writing that to the new portfolio holder as well, which is Councillor Cliff.
Yeah.
Councillor Bell?
Yeah, it is excellent news. So to go, obviously, going with the fact that last month's decision regarding becoming an HE and working with Homes England, RP and working with Homes England. I'm mixing up my initials, aren't I? It shows that the North Devon district is really in the right direction.
Yeah. Are you in favour of noting what has just been said? All in favour? Thank you.
And resolving to write.
And resolving to write.
Yeah.
Finish it. Thank you, Sarah Jane. Work programme. Anything else to do in there?
In light of the recent agenda item about the toilets at Staunton, I mean, I wasn't aware of that situation at all. I believe perhaps the toilets or toilets in general of ownership of, North Devon, what we own, should go on the work programme, and maybe we could have a brief overview of that and discussion, because obviously in strategy terms, it would be a good idea to get abreast of where we are with all the toilets, and maybe there are some decisions we can make, particularly strategy resources.
Yeah.
So members did resolve, I can't remember the actual date, a couple of years ago to embark on a programme of transferring those public toilets to parish and town councils. So we can provide an update as to where we are with that.
That would be useful, actually. Yeah. When I went to Human Rights, I think, Parish Council, it's just something that came up there, so it was useful to forwards, and then where we are. I think going forward for our who would be responsible for doing that.
But at the moment, we're acting on members' instruction So if members are happy, we can send an email out to members of the committee just advising where we are with that process. Unless you feel that there might be a change.
There might be questions about it as well when we get the report. So it would be useful to come onto perhaps some analysis. August. Could we have something sent out to members before and then put on as a report in August with questions? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Well, all right, you can for that?
Yeah, soon, probably. Yeah. I mean, the question, Chair, I guess, is whether there's likely to be a change of approach, because as I said, we're acting on the instruction from members of the.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's probably a change of approach. I think it's a matter of knowing where we're up to.
Okay, well, like I said, we can do an email. We can do an email out to members advising them where we are with the process, and if there are questions from that, then perhaps we could put it on the August agenda.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, just in terms of the next meeting's in Ilfracombe, and I know, I mean, Councillor Crabbe will know more about this than me, but I know there's a couple of town councillors who are interested in coming along. I just wondered if in our comms we can, let them know, but make it clear what the procedure is if members of the public or councillors are not councillors on the district want to ask questions or raise points, just so that there's no confusion when we get to the meeting.
We would just confirm as well where that line meeting is.
I'm not sure if we finalised it.
I think it was at the, I think it's at the town council offices.
The town hall, the Ilfracombe Centre. Yeah. Okay.
Rather than.
We were looking at the Lantern Centre and we were looking at Landmark and also the Ilfracombe Centre.
I think who would be doing that, Kelly? Would it be Ariane?
Yeah.
I think she actually talks. She said to sit and I just made a decision rather than have it there.
Oh, yes, yeah, he's looking for the OWL facility as well. Yeah, that's very good.
Councillor Carol, did you?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. I'm interested to see that the work programme doesn't currently have anything about local government reorganisation and any potential further devolution. I would like us to talk about that, see where we are, and if there are any decisions to be made, particularly as I think there will be, this council resolved to support the 1.5 option for the unitaries, but also to be looking and seeing what else is potentially useful for us. I believe that the final submissions need to be in November, I think. So my feeling is that perhaps we should be talking about this in September to see where we are and actually if there are any decisions to be made. So it's already in the work programme ready for us.
Chair, if I may, the omission from the work programme does not mean you will not be looking at it. The omission from the work programme is purely down to the fact that there is no set timetable for it yet as to when a decision is required. We started organising the workshop, the first workshop with members to start looking at those alternative options, which will be a joint workshop with Torres District Council councillors. That's been set up for next week, is it? Imminent, anyway.
I know I can't go.
Okay. But it will be slotted into the work programme. It's just that if I put it into September, it might not be until October that we need the decision. So it will be coming to you during that period.
Well, I suppose as long as we have the assurance that it is here and in good time, so that if we as a committee, what I don't want us to end up with is right, this is the option, you get, decide yay or no, and that's it. There's no more time to do anything else.
It would be useful, and if we did actually put it on the agenda for September, then it can be either a verbal update from myself or yourself, because there's district council meetings, there's the new combined authority, the scrutiny, there's the meeting with Torridge. We'll be able to give some kind of update of where we are with some things.
Yeah, we can do that.
We can even have it on each agenda on each item as an agenda, we can have it at 5 minutes on it, on half an hour, depending on what's happening, but we could actually put it on each agenda for SNR now and November. Just for a quick verbal update from one of us as to what's happened.
If members want that, then that's fine.
Kept informed.
Yeah.
I would be very happy.
Well, it would be good because it would keep me what's going on as well. Councillor Katrina.
The LGA peer review, is that meant to come here or go to council or both?
What's happened, the new one or the last?
Yeah, no, the final report of the other
policy next week.
Come here
afterwards. I mean, that was a deliberate decision because one of their recommendations is that policy should be looking at formulating these things. It's just policy. We don't had a meeting, so the first one is this next week, is it? Do we say?
Yeah.
And then you have to come back to here, I think.
So it needs to go on the work programme.
It does need to go on the work programme.
I missed that, sorry, Chair.
Councillor Freeman was just asking you about what the situation was with the peer review. And I said, the recommendations are going to be looked at the policy committee next week, and then they'll be coming back to SNR.
Yes.
So Councillor Freeman said it needs to be on the SNR committee at the end of summer. But I mean, as you know, August, back September, because I think August might be few people aware that well, I think it is impossible.
It'll be a long time.
Put it in August, a long time. Put it on for August.
Yeah, that's fine.
We can put it on for August.
And can I ask you, this is obviously about the mini one which we had. Is there also still the intention for a chunkier one?
That's in September.
It's, I think, we're looking at dates in October.
Sure.
Yeah.
So at some point we will need to get it in the work programme to look at what comes out of that as well.
Yeah, but that'll probably be a couple of months after that.
So should we put it in the work programme now so that?
Well, until I know when I get the report, it's difficult to put it in the work programme.
Within 6 weeks, they're supposed to do it.
We can assume perhaps December if that's what you want, but it might be subject to change. We haven't
got specific dates, I don't think.
No.
We have to
We haven't confirmed the dates yet.
We'll wait till we get specific dates and then we can put it on. Yeah. Because the advantage of having this at the end of each SNR is we can.
Yeah.
That was just to
It's not necessarily maybe go for January for that, so that it gives the but then that does mean.
So once we've got a timetable, we can start planning it in. Just to make the point, Chair, for the July meeting, the Ilfracombe item we've got down as Ilfracombe regeneration projects update, but I think the intention was it to be wider than that to update on the partnership projects as well. Yeah. So we just changed the title slightly.
Sure.
Yeah, so let's just also add in August, we said we'd also bring a report back at some point around Limbridge car park. Provide an update on where we are with that. Just for members' benefit, that was a car park that's had some structural issues, which obviously we closed the spaces in that car park. It's on the narrow road as you go down into Lynmouth. We've been in conversation with town council. Members made a resolution to discuss with the town council about options for the future and then bringing that back for member consideration. That hasn't happened yet. So if you're happy, Chair, we'll look to bring that back at your August meeting.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else want to bring anything up for the agenda? No? Okay, thank you. We'll call it the end of the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody and officers. And then if we can remind you to stay behind, please. Do you want to do one?